Welcome to the Huskers podcast. Oh yeah!
We are live. Every time. We are live, folks, and we are pumped. It is May 2nd. It's a Thursday evening, and we have got to do the spring game recap, and so we are doing it right now. Couldn't wait. I have done absolutely an obscene amount of research and read every single article that's existed and watched the game 3 or 4 times now. And so I just called Andrew and said, we gotta talk about this because I know we did one last week, but we're back. We got to do it again. So here we are. It's
to get off our chest here.
The hype train is flowing, folks. It's
a rocket ship to the universe.
Is flowing.
It's a train. It's a rocket. I don't know what else it can be.
It is. I mean, it's so good. All right, so we got to dive in. We're going, folks. Welcome to the podcast. We got 38 folks joining us hot off the jump, kicking things off. Let me get this thing to the next slide. Let's kick this thing off. As always, brought to you by Pipeline Jerky, folks. We got Father's Day coming up. This is about to be one of our biggest seasons. We got a big special partnership we're about to launch next week, which we'll tell you about very, very soon. But go to pipeline-jerky.com. Every bag purchase of Pipeline Jerky goes directly to a royalty to the players through an NIL deal with the offensive line. We're bringing back the Pipeline. Pipeline boys looked good on Saturday. They look great. The offensive line's good. They're experienced. They're senior. We're pretty pumped for the offensive line. Really good stuff there. And go to huskguysstore.com. That's where you got all the good stuff. We got If We Die, We Die. We got Run the Damn Ball. We got Omaha hats, all the Pipeline Jerky merch. Head to huskguysstore.com. Check it out. But folks, here's what we're diving into right off the jump. So,
God,
we're obviously starting with Rayola because that was incredible. And do they ship in the U.S.? Yeah, Bob, we ship in the U.S. You bet. We're starting with Rayola. And I guess first I want to say, like, the one thing I like to think about in these games, to judge whether like the impact that we're having goes beyond the walls of Nebraska is like the text that you're getting and the people who are watching the games. That the game was kicking off, and I've got the consistent group that I text with constantly. I've got you, I've got Dad, I've got my friends. But pretty quickly on Saturday, I realized this one went well beyond that. I was getting, Chicago friends, Boston friends, East Coast, West Coast people being like, "Hey, I'm hearing about this Rayola."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Whoa!" Like my phone was just exploding. So I mean, right off the bat, I guess I captured some of the stuff here because I like to see like what are people picking up on the news side. We've obviously characters covering us with is Dylan Rayola already the real deal, but then from On3 to 24/7, CBS Sports, they're saying, he exceeded expectations.
Barstool
24/7 really was just calling him Arch Manning versus
ESPN
Dylan Rayola. ESPN was pumping him, CBS was pumping him. Dylan Rayola dazzles in spring game.
To the moon.
But he lived up to the hype. You're watching live. What do you think? What do you think from the first snap?
Yeah, from the first snap. Well, his first throw to Fedoni was so good, and we gained 11 yards that I was just like, I tweeted it live. I didn't think he would throw an incompletion that day and maybe the whole season. I was very much. His rhythm was unbelievable. His dropping throws in a bucket was. He was completing passes that we literally have not seen completed, at least not consistently, for years.
or ever.
Like Casey Thompson was solid. Like I was just floored that he looked as advanced as he did. As like he's 18, 3 months out of high school. He's still in high school.
Yeah,
Casey Thompson was a 5th-year senior, and so the sky is the limit. He went 4 for 4 on the opening drive, a 75-yard touchdown when like all of the eyes were on him, and that to me was like the most important thing was that everyone's watching those first series. That's when he's playing the best defense that we had at least available at the time on the field, and he just lit it up. His throw on the 2-point conversion was like unbelievable. We had a 3rd and long that he converted to Alex Bullock. That was just a bullet in coverage. I mean, just like almost knocked him over.
Yeah.
It's it felt good. It felt real good. I mean, it felt like they were gonna make a commercial for like Cialis or something for Husker fans after this one. It's
I think it was like, to me, what jumped out the most is like everybody's obviously seen his 7-on-7 tape. You've seen his high school film down in Georgia and in Arizona and Texas. Like you've seen him at these camps. We've seen the practice film, but I think it's just, to me, it was just so different when you put 60,000 people out there and it's a real game and they're all wearing pads and he's wearing Husker red and Husker N. That to me is where all of the stuff that we know about him and like the composure and the calmness for an 18-year-old in front of 60,000 people for the first time in his life. And like everybody can be like, oh, he played in front of big Georgia crowds. No, he didn't. What are we talking about? Like nobody's ever played in front of 60,000 people all watching you. And I think a lot of that, just like a lot of the stuff that I hoped would come out did, of, you see a kid who's grown up in an NFL family, he's grown up, in NFL locker rooms with his dad, he knows Matthew Stafford, he knows Patrick Mahomes, like just crazy stuff that you're like, you forget he's 18, because I think all of that, like when you're exposed to 14 years worth of an NFL locker room and Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, and all of the stuff he has, I think that's what you get, is this kid who's just unbelievable, like cool, calm, poised, collected. Like the way he was changing plays at the line of scrimmage, he's been on campus for like 10 seconds. And he's like, he's going up to the line of scrimmage. He's like checking out of like play calls. He's calling audibles. He's throwing deep. He's reading the defense.
His pass to Bonner, I like audibly, I was screaming like we were really winning a game. And it's like, it was just it was a sight to see. I mean, because like everybody's rooting for him. That's the thing, is that the last thing that any Husker fan wants to see, I mean, the absolute last, is like some sort of somebody saying, "Oh, I told you so." Like the absolute last thing we want is how he is a bust. And right now it's pointing towards it does not look like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and I think it's, every Husker fan is so broken that, you're like, okay, wait, what's the catch here? Like, is it, what's he miss? Is there something off? Like, is he going to transfer again? Is he like, something terrible going to happen? And it's just crazy that like this kid is sitting here as an 18-year-old on campus. And I think it's exciting. I think it's like, he lived up to the hype. He made the completions. He's throwing it around. He was accurate. He was cool and calm. Like I think
he made a lot of easy plays too. Like
the easy plays that he makes,
for 6 or 7 yards. He kept his eyes up and completed some dump passes.
The way that he throws screen passes, where he throws them like a shortstop, he kind of throws them like off the wrong foot or off his back foot. Like
that's the Mahomes.
I mean, we made those passes look heroic the last 5 years. It was like Adrian couldn't make that pass. It just was like he couldn't do it. So I don't know. He made those passes. If you're like, oh, he just threw a screen pass, that's not that big a deal. And you're like, well, we haven't completed a screen pass in a decade.
I mean, we collectively passed for 49% last year or something. I think it was 52%. Harvard was like, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, but I think what's, again, what I like come back to is, and I like captured a lot of these, was it wasn't just us, right? Like Nebraska fans exploded. Like Twitter was going nuts. Yeah, everybody is like, all of us locally are like, this guy is unbelievable. But what I look to is like, are we just drinking our own Kool-Aid, or like, are people actually, our external people actually looking at it too? And there's a couple guys. Josh Pate's a guy who I follow closely. I don't know if you listen. Do you listen to him at all?
Yep.
He's a little bit more like, he's more an SEC guy, but he's a college football guy as a whole. He was like, he said on his, and I clipped this and posted it. he was like, I was getting blown up. I was getting blown up by people saying Dylan Raiola is the real deal. Like I was getting texts from all over the country, people saying like tune into the spring game. And he's like, this hype train has started and it is going full bore. Like this thing is off the rails for the Huskers. Like this thing is going to go to the absolute moon. This is coming from a guy who's, this isn't coming from a local writer. This isn't coming from a Husker fan. This is coming from a college football writer. So like when those guys start saying it, then I'm like, all right, I'm fully warranted.
Yeah. It's good to see the neutral.
Yeah, and I think Aaron Murray was
okay. I'm not insane. Like I am insane for my own reasons, but not this reason. Like this seems to be fairly universally agreed on.
I guess what I go back to is like I kept thinking about, is this the most, and even this question I think is interesting. When was the last time we had a QB with this potential? I would argue like Adrian Martinez had all of these things. Not this level of polish.
Out of California, like you're feeling.
But the first game that Adrian had against Colorado, when he burst onto the scene and he had the flipping touchdown, he had like 230 passing yards, 130 like rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns or whatever. We lost, but he had all of those things, and like the hype was all, but he didn't quite draw this level of like Josh Pate talking about Aaron Murray, like the ESPN guy. Like this Dylan Raiola is on like a different planet and is putting us back. Like we finished at 7 last year.
A couple 5-star quarterbacks out there. And one of them is ours.
Yeah. Aaron Murray, was another one. He's a Georgia guy. He had a whole thing that was like Dylan Raiola looks pretty good in the spring game. And then he jumps to, if you can read this, he just jumped through, the Huskers get to 8-9 wins this year. I was like, dude, have you never
Murray's a believer.
Have you never watched Nebraska season? Like we don't just win 9 games. Like we make it impossible to win 6. Like, in a Georgia fan's brain, he's like, they got a quarterback. They should just win 9 games. I was like, God, if it's that easy.
We got one of their quarterbacks. That should make it even easier.
But again, he watched the game. He's like, I watched the tape. I watched the film. Like, he looked really good. And I think those, I think the highlight reels he had, get the touchdown passes, the Lloyd touchdown passes, but the other ones, I mean, he threw a bunch of Fedoni that were like right on target. You're like, wow, God, if Fedoni starts catching balls in stride, I mean, hello.
Freight train coming
He's a tank.
Forget about it.
But then also, obviously, got to touch on how, I mean, you talk about hype train going to next stratosphere. Is Zach Bryan pulled him on stage? Do you see this?
Come on.
I mean,
it's like
he's like he's entering
what's
like
funny is like
he's entering his Taylor Swift era, and he's like 18.
There's definitely more Nebraskans that know Dylan Raiola than Zach Bryan, but
which he probably does.
Maybe Zach Bryan, I mean, it's just very, very quick aside. That ZB, man, that guy had a weekend in Nebraska. He showed up. Like, props to him. They were helping with tornado relief.
Oh, really?
They brought. They were like volunteering and helping clean up out in Elkhorn. I mean, like a fantastic gesture from him. And then brings Matt Rule up on stage, and it's like, good Lord, I mean, how do you endear yourself to Nebraskans any more than what you've done? Here's one more for you. And he was wearing a Creighton jersey, so he's just hitting every single part of Nebraska.
Yeah, it's smart if you're going to play a local. Yeah, I was going to say,
he's going to have a local internal fan base in Nebraska now.
Best way to do it is to endear yourself. But yeah, so that, I mean, we can jump in. We can keep going down the rail hype trail and see if I can get this. Stats wise, the stats were all broken because I'm just pulling these from the site because they all, like, the quarterbacks all played for multiple teams. So I was like, wait, he didn't go 6 for 6. We went 6 for 6 for like the red team, and then 10 of 16. But I mean, you look at those numbers: 10 of 16 and 6 of 6. I think in total 16 of 22. But 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, massive touchdowns. The 64-yard bomb to Lloyd was incredible. I mean, Lloyd. I mean, God, it's that's probably his 5th or 6th 50-plus yard touchdown. I mean, that's a true deep threat. That's a true deep threat.
Lloyd had like 3 catches for 97 yards. That's all he has. It's unbelievable. And I think it's all he's going to continue to do. But the other thing about the quarterbacks, like, just, I mean, heaping a lot of praise on Raiola, warranted. He's the best. I love him. But honestly, Harburg did look better.
I agree.
He just looked little bit more comfortable throwing. I mean, he had a deep ball to Corey Barney. Like that touchdown pass was, I mean, that was dropped in a bucket from 40 plus yards.
Yeah.
So props to him. He had one pretty solid scramble as well. He seemed to like step up in the pocket a little bit more confidently and got that one to Fedoni, which was definitely going to be a sack in a real game, but it wasn't, and it actually became a touchdown. I thought he actually looked improved, and flashing back to our last podcast, like we were talking with Honky from the Go Big Redcast, and he was just saying, Harburg's actually the guy he's watching in the spring game.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting point just because, Glenn Thomas just got there a few months ago. And so if the Glenn Thomas experiment is working, you're going to see progress from Harburg. And I think we did see that. He did have a couple. I mean, those first two series, we still saw him kind of throwing behind guys a little bit. He got one to Borkircher that was like in the second half that it looked like it was about to be intercepted, but Borkircher made a good catch. So, I mean, he's still not quite there, and it maybe just doesn't look as natural as it does to Rayola, but definitely improved. And then
I would agree. I think
Kalen looked pretty solid. Like he seemed to have a good understanding of the offense, but a couple like overthrows, a couple that just maybe weren't like confidently placed. The interception was like he threw it a second too late. So I think there is zero doubt in my mind at this point that Rayola is your starter day one, but you got to feel a little bit more confident about your second.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of. I mean, I read a ton of the recaps across the board. I think everybody kind of came away with the same idea. I think there was, because Rhule has made such a big point out of making this a quarterback competition, and saying like, hey, I haven't named a starter yet. It's going to be a competition all through the summer. And I mean, if you read some of them, like Mitch Sherman was one of them. He was like, no, we got eyes. We're good. We got eyes. Thank you. We saw. So I think it was pretty obvious Rayola like would be the number one if it started now. But I would agree, Harburg looks a lot better, and I think that is probably kudos to Glenn Thomas for working with him. And he seemed more comfortable with his reads. He seemed more comfortable throwing the ball downfield. He's good running as he always is. But I would also agree when Kalen. I've been a little probably skeptical of Kalen, mainly because I think Rayola is like the real deal. I watched a lot of his high school games, and I was like, I think he's good, not like elite, but he made a ton of throws on Saturday. I was like, oh, okay, this is what the coaches are seeing. This is what he's been doing in practice. Like he makes some big time throws. He has big time arm talent. And so
I think 9 for 16. I mean, you'll take that most days.
Yeah, I think but he throws a good football. He throws it, he throws well to the sideline. He was, making a lot of big plays. So I think in that instance, I felt good about that room. I think you obviously hope Dylan comes out of it and comes in the fall healthy and could throw it around. But I think the whole room, I felt pretty good about. But who they're throwing to, I guess. No, I want to come back to running backs because I want to go with the wide receivers first. Let's talk wide receivers because I thought you learned a little bit about the wide receivers. I think the first one I want to start with is Banks because I didn't quite. Did they intentionally hold him out, Jamal Banks?
Yeah. I mean, I really only saw him a series or two. They held him out though. I think that there's just, and I actually take that as more or less a good thing or a good sign for both Banks and Coleman that they're so confident in them that they didn't feel that there was too much to gain by them playing and probably a lot to lose. Like you saw Demetrius Bell go down. God dang it.
Yeah.
And just unbelievable. God dang it.
Yeah,
we're not going negative. We're not going negative. But like, I mean, just imagine that happening to. Imagine that happening to Banks or Coleman or so it happens. But so they held him out, but I do think you're right. We learned a good amount about who's going to be the trusted guys, like who's going to be those depth pieces that are going to be your next up. If it's not Banks, Coleman. It looked like Nair was out there a good amount. He he's fast.
I like him a lot.
He runs like an antelope.
Yeah.
His stride is like 10 yards long.
Yeah. He fits that he kind of fits that Texas wide receiver mold. Like he kind of looked like so he started at Wyoming, transferred down to Texas. Like a lot of those Texas wide receivers, Xavier Worthy, isn't that his name? Xavier Worthy. Yeah. They're super tall, super lengthy, run like a deer. Yeah, but he catches it, and you're like, dude, like he had that one play on the sideline that he caught. They ruled him out of bounds, but you were like, oh my god, he's gonna house this thing.
Yeah, called it back. Yeah.
I would say I was actually surprised he only had a couple catches because every time he caught it, I was like, oh, this guy can play.
He has that other gear. I like getting Dowdle. I mean, he got a bunch out of the backfield. I think I don't remember. I think Emmett Johnson did as well. So I mean, that's like 6, maybe actually even had a 7th catch out of the backfield. So they're definitely, you can tell they're going to be doing that this year as well. Pitching it out to our running backs a good amount. But Lloyd and Barney, I mean, actually, I would say Lloyd, Barney, and Nair, those guys just have another gear.
Yeah. Which is, I mean,
and they separated themselves, I think, from the pack.
That's almost always the thing that we seemingly don't have, besides like a Trey Palmer, who is, a really elite talent. Having that game breaker that you can just throw the pass, it's like get the ball in your playmaker's hands. Those guys are playmakers. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Coleman's a playmaker. Well, now it seems like Banks will be.
We've got too many now. We've got maybe 5 or 6.
I thought Fedoni had a great game. I think he looks healthy. He looks big, and him and Borkature, like that. I really like the balance of the offense because you can see how they spread it around. Where you've got running backs have 4 catches, you've got tight ends with 3 catches each. You've got a bunch of different wide receivers that got to play. It's obviously the spring game, but tons of different guys got to play. Tons of different guys got to make catches.
Tons of different guys. Interesting now. Like after watching that too. Because Nelson's not on campus yet.
Right.
And you had Smith Flores actually looked good. And then you had Vidoni looked good. Borkercher looked good. So that's 4.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of like, that's a lot of mouths to feed just at the tight end spot, actually.
Borkercher, I thought actually, I was like, Borkercher.
And then Ian Flint got in there, but he's probably a red shirt, so that's 5. I mean, that was a solid performance from the tight ends. They were actually blocking pretty well on the outsides as well.
I just think there's if you have this type of diversity of players that can do things that we finally have a quarterback that can throw to them. Where like Harburg was really never a threat to throw last year, so they would just stack the line of scrimmage. But if you have a quarterback that can throw a dump off pass to Dowdell, who can throw to tight ends, coming across the middle, who can throw a deep ball to Jalen Lloyd, who can throw an out route to Ja'Cory Barney, like all of a sudden you got to cover, the entire field.
What was that all out blitz call in NCAA football? Which is coming back.
The punt block, all out.
Yeah, they were. That's what defense engage 8, I think it was called, and it was just where all 8 up front just went for it.
Yeah, so
that's what defenses would do against us.
Yeah, they're just gonna play it like crazy.
Just like, all right, everybody, just go.
Yeah, forget it.
Just go.
Yeah, so I thought this is a good room.
Man on the backside.
I think the wide receivers I thought were like pretty solid. Okay, so what's your take on the running backs? I posted something earlier and I meant to screen grab some of the comments. I would say the running back room, at least among the fan base, is definitely one that everyone's a little shaky on. What's your take on the running back room?
Yeah, I mean, out of the watching the spring game, I feel better, which is much better than feeling worse. Dowdle broke that run, but it was also like he showed very good vision. He showed that he can make cuts, and he showed that he can house one from 50 yards. Also, when he was running down the sideline, he looked kind of like
It's weird.
He kind of looked like he was dreaming that he was getting caught by bad guys or something, like he was in a police chase or like like where you're just like willing yourself to go faster, but you're not going faster in your dream.
Yeah.
Like he looked like he was just really putting his back into it
He
and
just
just
was
like trying to just galloping. But they made it. I mean, to his credit, there was just it just looked like
he was outrunning like
come up
walk-ons.
lame. Like he looked like Michael Johnson in the Olympics right now. Like, God dang, he's gonna blow a hammy running like this.
I just thought he would look. I watched that like 5 times because I was like, I thought he was like a Oregon wide receiver sprinter, like super fast guy. And the guys chasing him were like walk-ons, like not good walk-ons. And yeah, he just looked. Everybody was like, I watched some guy was like, one guy was like posting it, reposting it. He's like, he looks hurt, like he was gimpy, or maybe that's the way he runs. I don't know. I guess I would have liked to like more breakaway speed.
He made it to the end zone. It's fine.
He was grinding to get there.
But EJ Emmett Johnson, I actually thought he runs very hard, and I actually think that it's going to be. I think it might be. I think it's that or D-backs. They're going to be like the most interesting position battle going into the fall. But I mean, you're looking at the distribution of carries and stuff here. Obviously, it's a spring game, so you want to get everybody involved. Quentin Ives, I think he lacks a little bit of the vision and burst and stuff, but he's a guy that does. They keep talking about him, so you keep wanting to see like these type of highlights. But I think Dowdle just showed like he can catch it out of the backfield.
Yep,
they gave it to him 7 times. He broke 2 pretty solid runs. Actually, I think there was a third that he had for like over 10 yards. I mean, he looked like he could be your bell cow guy, but I feel like they keep talking up Emmett as I think he's going to be the guy.
yeah.
Unless Irvin comes back 100%, which just feels unlikely. I think they're going to trust Emmett Johnson, and then I think Dowdle's definitely going to be involved, like inside the red zone.
I think I'm reading some of the comments that we got on Twitter, but I think what Husker fans struggle with, and I would agree with this, especially since all the stuff we just said at the beginning, talking about Rail, it's like you can watch him throw one pass, you're like, okay, this guy's got it. We haven't really had an NFL running back since Amir, probably. Is that Azigbo? Yeah, Azigbo, Amir, and then Rex before that. So I think not having like a true NFL breakaway talent in the Big Ten is kind of tough. Right. I agree. Emmett Johnson he runs hard and he is good. I agree. Dowdell is going to do a lot of different things. I think they're going to like him. I just think when you don't quite, in the grinded out 10-3 games that we have, when you're kind of like, we're still looking at this lineup like, okay, yeah, I think he can do it. I think Johnson can do it. I think Dowdell can do some stuff. Ives maybe. I think that's probably where the fans are a little like, okay, yeah. It can work.
Johnson too.
Yeah, I mean, a 28-year-old Ramir Johnson.
Yeah, seriously, he's been there. Like,
I mean, Gabe Herman's got like the Bo Jackson hip going on. He's got like a plastic hip. Like, I don't know. It's like, how healthy is he?
He's just scootering around campus.
He's 22 without a hip. Like Ramir Johnson is, in Secret Service. Like, what are we? He's this old man, just like giving a parking spot. It's like, how's he still playing? I don't know what's going on. I just think that it's like that this might be the room. I think if you go into the season and you're like, wow, Rail is unbelievable. He's lighting it up everywhere. If he just had like a serviceable running back, and hopefully Gabe Urban's serviceable. Hopefully like Emmett Johnson is serviceable. These guys are, because it's like if we can't control the line of scrimmage and we can't like run the ball at all. I think Emmett Johnson can. He proved that last year. I just think you don't quite have the like. All right, like the run the damn ball guy, which is what I'm wearing right now, is not going to have a lot to say.
No, this is gonna be a weird season in that like you've got these running backs that I think you definitely know who you can trust, and I think you can work with this running back room. But when you've got Raiola, like run the damn ball guy is going to become just air it out, buddy.
Yeah, just stop it. Stop running. Get Emmett Johnson out of the game. 5 wide. Get Emmett Johnson out.
It's just all goes, baby. Let's get to the end zone. It's going to be like, why are we running the ball?
Get it out of there. Get it out. I did want to cover, and this is some other good stuff. I want to let's go special teams first and then come back to, we'll come back to defense. So special teams, because we have a kick returner, which is sick.
We do. And he was so disappointed that Tristan Albano really kind of ruined his day by wearing a disguise color.
Did you hear what he was trying to do? He thought he was going to high five him. He thought he was going to high five him on the way to the end zone.
Like he's Quentin Newsom returning a kick.
Like he thought he was going to high five him on the way to the end zone. And then, he goes and tackles him. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe I just got tackled by the kicker. But regardless, like, I don't know. Again, it's like we haven't had a kick returner since, I don't know, JD Spielman. It's like,
Spielman, Tommy Hill was serviceable. Ethan Nation was serviceable.
They were fine.
But Ja'Cory Barney showed exactly what he can bring another dimension to the team.
Yeah, he's got the shake. He just has that shake and bake. He's got the he could have brought a couple back, and then even in the post game, he's like, I'm going to bring one back against Colorado, which I love. Colorado's having a good offseason, by the way. What's happening?
Oh, they're having an absolute blast this week. God.
What are they doing?
What are they doing? I mean, like, this is like, I mean, it's like there was a fire in the house. They went in, they put it out. They're like, they're good, we're good. And then, like, Dion starts smoking and throws a match on the ground. It's like, no, what are you doing?
I mean, what are they
doing here?
I can't even their fans their fans are so insane that I can't tweet about it anymore because they crushed us last year. So I have no license to be able to say anything. But they all right, we can touch on this for a second. This is worth talking about. This is the only venue I can talk about this. If he doesn't want you on his team, he just obliterates you. He will just publicly embarrass you, your family, your kid's family, your mom, your dad, just obliterates you.
He's like, why did you play football again?
I mean, it's like these guys are I don't know. It's like, how can you build a program just destroying every player that played on your team?
The stats, I had to look it up because it's like every day of our lives, another person from Colorado enters the transfer portal. And they had 51 transfer players added last year, which is, of course, an all-time record. 51. 35 of them have transferred. Again, left. 51 came in.
So they only have 15 left?
16.
There's 16 left?
From that transfer class, the 2023 class. They had 7
of the kids that he picked
from the 2023 group that came in.
The kids that Dion picked, he told 35 of them to go pass.
He said, "Actually, you suck." He said, "I changed my mind. You all suck."
Well, that's what's the crazy thing to me is I was 100% on board for what he did last year. If you go 1-11, I wish Rule had done it. I'm glad. In hindsight, I'm glad he didn't. But if you're picking over a 1-11 team, you should cut all 100 players on the team. And he did that. And I agreed with that move because I was like, okay, start over, get these guys in. But now he's cutting 5 stars. I mean, that kid sucks. And, he was the number one. He cut the Cormani McLean. He was the number one quarterback in the country. And
McLean said on his way out the door, he's like, I want to go to a place run by adults, basically. He was like, who's the teacher in this classroom? He's like,
that's what's he just even in that example, and I mean, for those who aren't as addicted to this as we are, so Cormani McLean was the number one cornerback in the country. He was the number one recruit for Dion. He's the biggest coup that he took, and Dion basically cut him. But then on the way out the door, if you watch his interviews, he's like, he wasn't going to start. He's not good. He doesn't pay attention. He doesn't work hard. We didn't want him here. Then coach him. Isn't that kind of your job?
You do anything you can to keep a talent like that. If
you
you
coach him,
him,
he's got a bad attitude. But so do you. Like, I don't know. Like, what are you doing?
They also have lost. There was an article that said so they had 72 because they were a little short on scholarships last year. So they had 72 scholarships offered in his first year. So going back to basically last like December or whenever he was hired, of the 72 offered scholarships, they said 61% of those players are gone.
Okay, that's a high percent.
61.
It's crazy.
And that's after they had all that turnover last year. So that's like, I mean, it's unsustainable. But
I mean, it's one of the things. It's like, God, if we could just freaking beat them, if we can beat it one freaking time, like we can talk all the trash we want for the rest of our lives. But it's like they beat us and then they just lost the rest of their games. So they clearly stink and it's clearly not working. But like we can't beat them, so we got to beat them. Once we beat them, because again, like, and here's the big contrast of the whole thing is all these stats. So they've lost 60% of their scholarship guys from last year. They've lost, 35 of their 50 transfers, all this stuff. We've had now 4 kids hit the transfer portal in the last 4 months.
4 in the spring. And then you got Purdy, Sims, Taman Lynham.
Yeah.
So a couple from the winter portal. I think it was
Buckley today.
I want to say 8 or 9 total.
Well,
but like 4 in the spring is after spring ball.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like you're at the point now that your players are not transferring; they're getting essentially cut, or like it's like, hey, you're not going to start, you're not going to play, whatever it is. Like Borders is probably the closest we got to that's a big bummer. That's tough. Like I think he would have started, but then if you watch Rule's interview, he's like he graduated. He stuck with us through the spring. He played all the way through the spring, and he graduated, is looking for a different opportunity. Like, we didn't cut him. Like he went on his own. So. He's one. I think Buckley was tough because he kept switching, he went D-line to O-line and like just didn't quite fit. But it's such a stark contrast of like, we have so many players on our team now that we have to like cut players and Deion's just like cutting them every day. It's like, all right, like can you imagine their freaking locker room? Like, it's gotta be chaos.
Well, I don't even it'd be weird to show up and there's only 50 players on your team.
But if you tweet about it though, or if you talk about it,
everybody? Oh yeah, we lost
fans going nuts because they're like, well, no, but they've all added 40 new transfer portal players. So like they just have an entirely new roster, but their roster is showing up to campus in May again, and you're like, all right, like it might work, but also like probably not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. And Jamie just commented as well that we have that we're over our scholarship limit. What's really interesting is with what we're doing is how kind of 1890 has played in.
Yeah.
Because there's players like Xander Rigoroli, whatever, who came to us last year, and it was a coup to get him. But he's a guy that's not on scholarship, and so he doesn't. Even though he's a high 3-star O-lineman, I mean, he's a great player. And he's going to be a depth piece for us for sure. Maybe a future starter. Like for right now, they're just basically taking money, giving them the value of a scholarship to Nebraska, but not putting them on scholarship. And so I think that anymore, like that scholarship limit
don't matter.
Well, yeah, I mean, so if you have enough money,
right.
Obviously you don't want to just like drain that. So.
I think it's a good point, Jamie. And I do think it is. Yeah, it's like Jamie said we've got 150 players. We have to get down to 120 prior to preseason camp, which is crazy. So it's 30 extra kids. 120.
Well, let me tell you, I saw a lot of defenders out there, and maybe a kicker that could probably go. So
I mean, what are we doing with Alfano?
Yeah, let's move to special teams. Good Lord, Omaha West Side just sabotaging the program.
What is he doing? Like he can't make anything.
It was bad. I know he's got all the potential in the world. Like any high schooler that's booting 50+ yarders, it's like they're good in my book. But he's got to get it together. I mean, like It's kind of like when Alex Henry. So the best kicker maybe that's ever been at Nebraska, right? And then he goes to the pros, and he was good, he was solid. But there were years when Henry was in the pros, and like he ended up getting cut, and you're like, I would have never thought that possible. And that's like Alvano going from high school to college. I don't know what happened to Henry, but he was missing kicks that he always made in college. And Alvano's missing kicks that he made in high school routinely. I don't know if are we changing his kicking style? Are we? It's just, man, it is.
I looked
it's getting concerning. It's getting to concerning levels.
Yeah.
We'll just
I looked this up because I was curious about it, and I wanted to make sure I was like treating him fairly. Not just because of my hatred for Westside, but because of like, all right, I actually want this kid to be good. But so he missed 6 field goals last year, and now he's missed 2 in the spring, which don't count. It's a practice game, whatever. But Alex Henry missed 8 in 4 years. 2 of them were blocked, and then 2 of the misses were like from 50 plus. So basically, like he didn't miss one his senior year. Like he made every field goal he kicked, which is freaking crazy, including like obviously the Colorado one. So he's almost missed, so 6 plus 2 in the spring game. He makes all his like extra points, but I just think being a Husker fan, how broken we are with his special teams. Like, can we just get to a point that we just freaking make kicks? Like, it's always just has to be.
Think about it as much.
We spend so like I don't want to spend time looking up kicker stats. I would just like kicks to go in.
Second kick. His second kick, it looked like there was still a tornado in Lincoln. It was.
And
it had long passed. We were told that it had passed, but it was like the tornado right as he kicked it.
Kicking from Elkhorn, a shank.
He yanks that thing. He almost hit the corner of the end zone. Oh God, I know.
Kicked twice in 2 minutes. And both were like not even close. Yeah, it's tough. And I had there's a few guys who, Drew Brown came out and was like, he's gonna be fine. He just needs to work through some stuff. He's young, and everybody keeps saying he's young. Let him work through. I'll give him all the time he needs, but we can't. If we're gonna lose 13-10, I'm gonna lose my mind if we don't have a kicker.
Yeah, it's a pretty essential part of the game.
I mean, obviously we started with we had a quarterback.
I wonder if they call it chasing 3 because they're just like, hey, Tristan, you know how much your kicks are worth? 3.
A kick.
So
a kick. God. Anyway, well, that's on the downside, but I mean, so Barney's the highlight of me on special teams. I just feel like if you have a punt returner or a kick returner, that changes everything. I think that makes it super exciting. Bushini's fine. I'd like for him to be a little bit better. Jamie's on my team here, saying the punter needs some work as well. I agree, Jamie. But special teams, stuff's happening. So kickers in progress. I don't even talk about them. Let's talk defense. Defense was interesting because basically nobody played. Nash didn't play. Ty didn't play. Most of your starting defense didn't play. I actually heard, God, and I'm going to butcher this. I've listened to so much Husker radio this week. It's been insane. So I'm going to forget who said this.
I did too. I couldn't stop.
And so I can't remember who actually said this, but someone made a really good point of basically saying this was like Rule playing chess with the spring game.
Yeah.
And sitting all the starters that have he's very confident in the Nashes of the world, the Ties of the world, the Giffords of the world. So that basically the entire defense was the second team defense got all of the snaps. And the third team defense got a ton of snaps. And the fourth team defense even got a ton of snaps. And a lot of these second and third team guys, if they hadn't played in the screen game, would have transferred. Would have hit the portal, would have gone somewhere else. And because they'd essentially be like, I don't have the opportunity to shine. Yeah. I don't have the opportunity, to play here. And instead they started in front of 60,000 people against Dylan Rayola. If that was truly his intention, brilliant. And I think it worked because a lot of these guys got a ton of tackles, they got a ton of playing time, and we got to see a ton of different faces. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. What do you think of the defensive performance?
Yeah, the other point that I heard, which I don't know how true it is, the balance between you wanted to kind of put a show on, like, and you heard him say before the game, I kind of want to see how our quarterbacks step up in the moment. I want to see how they pass. I want to see, how they do. The plan was the quarterbacks were going to be passing.
Yeah.
And so and I think that the decision to sit your starters was more, of course, for just like longevity and preserving them. There's not as much to gain for them. They're basically going to be black shirts day one. But you also got some 5-star receivers on the sideline that were there for official visits.
Yep.
And there is nothing that those guys wanted to see more than the Rayola to Jalen Lloyd bomb. And you see some guys coming out afterward, including one who committed, Turch, and he's like, why would you not want to play with Dylan Rayola? Why would you, like, this like me and him, we're going to combo and we're going to be like the best, like you can just see the future of the franchise, I guess. And so sitting your defensive starters and a lot more of your defensive starters than offense kind of makes sense in that regard too. But it was a little bit concerning, some of it, like at the same time, because the O-line completely gashed them too.
Which, again, that spring game's hard because you're like, nice, finally.
Nice, but shit.
Finally. but also very bad.
So, the O-line was opening up big time holes. I think a lot of receivers were running free that you kind of wouldn't want to see in a
correct. Wide open
and stuff as well. But nonetheless, I think we got some a good handle on things and who they're going to want to see. Probably the biggest battle I think that we're going to see going into the summer is D-back and the severity of Bly Hill's injury as well.
What did they say? What did they say about it?
So the only word that I think we need Rule to open up a little bit here is I heard the word patella. Okay. Now, Dr. Brain, there's a patella bone, that's your kneecap, and then there's a patella tendon, that is basically your quadriceps continued over the top of the kneecap, inserts into the tibia. And so that's what helps kind of extend your knee. I think that just looking at the way that they got injured, and it was both of them, Demetrius Bell and Bly Hill. They said patella injuries. So I'm really? presuming he means patella tendon, which is either a strain, a partial tear, or full tear. If you're full thickness tear, he said
what he said. Directionally, he said Bell's was worse.
Yeah,
and
so there's a spectrum of injury. A full thickness tear is essentially, you can consider that an ACL tear essentially. You've got to basically entirely reconstruct a patella tendon. You can't extend your knee really without it. A partial is repairable, like you're looking at a couple of months. So I don't think that there was like a collision hard enough for it to be like the kneecap with what he meant by that. But regardless, if we have Bly Hill in the fall, if you're looking like a partial tear, you're in that like 3 to 6 month range. So could come back during the season still. But it sounds like it's going to be Bly if we have him.
Yeah.
If he's coming off of injury now, this is going to be one of the position battles like going into the summer.
Who do you think, to Max's question here, who do you think starts a corner opposite Tommy Hill?
You got Buford. There's talk of Jeremiah Charles making moves down there as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I feel better about safety. Yeah, like Deshaun Singleton's going to be back there.
Yeah.
But that's going to end up being the big question mark, because Bly was supposed to be who was going to be opposite of Tommy Hill, who had locked down already.
Yeah. I think, similar vein, Jamie's question here, how good was the quarterback, Patty, when you take into consideration that didn't play against starting level talent? I think it's a good question. I think it's kind of what we're batting around here is when you take out, Tommy Blyhill's out and you're playing against basically backups, and the fact that he doesn't have Nash in Ty Robinson in his face, and I mean, a probably completely different ballgame if you got Ty Robinson trying to rip your head off. I would say Jamie, and to that question, right to be cautiously optimistic by it because he hasn't faced like a Michigan level D line or like an Ohio State level D line type thing. But he still made the passes. He still was like extremely cool and calm and collected in the pocket. A lot of the quarterbacks made a bunch of good passes, and it remains to be seen what happens in the fall. But it'll be interesting once they actually have some big boys there.
The thing that made it all stand out just was that he did the simple things right. Like he took what the defense was giving, and it kind of doesn't matter who you're playing against as long as you're running the system correctly. Like if he was, if it's one thing to make a couple like overthrows and whatever, but he was also just making like his decision making was probably the biggest thing that you saw. And you didn't really see any like, okay, this guy's lost, he was making the right decisions. And I mean, we know about the arm talent. Like I think everybody knows, okay, he's going to be able to throw it 70 yards. But like that was also supposed to be the case with Jeff Sims. He was supposed to be able to throw bombs and run it, but he just could not run the offense. And
do you see he's going to Arizona State now?
Yeah, good luck. But great guy, great teammate, but good luck. But that was honestly the biggest thing that stood out. Like Raiola on the 2-point conversion, it was just an incredible play. He rolled out. He was flushed out of the pocket. He found a guy between basically 3 players, but it was the right throw, the right timing. The same with the 3rd down conversion to Bullock. He was in trouble.
Is Bullock going to play, by the way?
Found the right guy.
Is Bullock like the new like Nate Swift, he's like Todd Peterson?
Yeah, he's like I noticed that you're quoting and you're referencing all white wide receivers.
Western camp.
And it's,
is he the next great Husker white wide receiver?
Next great white.
The great white hope.
I think so.
I was laughing as I was watching him because I was like, he's sure-handed. He seems to always be open. He's got like the right route. He reminds me so much of those guys because I would like hate on Nate Swift and like Todd Peterson. He's like, God, I can't believe we don't have like a game breaker. And then you're like, wait, Nate Swift is literally always open, and Todd Peterson catches everything. And Jordan Westerkamp is amazing. It's like, all right, we're just a white wide receiver factory. That's just what we do. We just produce the best white wide receivers.
Absolutely. I do. It did obviously help that he was throwing against our second string D-backs, but I'm kind of looking more at it. I think Marcus Buford, he does kind of stand out as somebody that got some time last year. And then Dwight Boodle and Ethan Nation, I guess I would throw them in the mix if it's not going to be Blyhill. Ethan Nation was surprising that he played last year. I just didn't totally expect it, but we were playing, 3 deep at every single position. So, but he's pretty undersized. Like I'm looking at our roster, he's 5'10", 160 pounds. So he's, smaller fella, but between Nation, you got Dwight Boodle as a redshirt freshman, Marcus Buford as a junior. I think Hartzog, I think they're pretty confident he's going to end up at safety. So I like the options, but I have to admit, I don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah, interesting.
Those 3 guys.
Interesting. What other? What we've covered offense. We got defense. We got special teams.
Yeah.
I like
coaching.
Coaching. You go ahead and I'll jump in. But I thought I like the approach. Like I agree with. You wrote this in our notes, but the Rule said all along, he's like, we just got to play football. And I appreciate it. I was watching kind of some of the highlights from some of the other spring games across the country. There's a lot of really hokey, weird stuff that people are doing. And we had done this with Bo, and like we would do like games and prizes and like beanbag tosses and stuff. And it was like
tailgating on the field.
Yeah, I mean, remember how like weird some of those games got? And you're like,
right, and like the score in the game would end up like 512 to
and it was like you get points for tackles and like
points for what?
I don't know. I guess I just appreciate it. It's like, no, rules like we're gonna play football. We play football. Like this is what you do. You need to play.
How it should be. And tackle football for the most part.
Tackle football, except for the quarterbacks, and because he had a longer like kind of chat or rant on this that he was like, these guys don't play enough football. Like kids as a whole don't play enough football. Like they grow up kind of playing flag football, and then they play 7-on-7, and then they go to high school and they play a decent amount. But he's like, you need to play tackle football and at the highest level in front of 60,000 people. So I think that the fact that they got a full game of tackle football and he had tons of players making plays and hundreds of plays that they run, I thought that was, I don't know, a better format.
I liked that, and I think that some of the things that probably stood out that they're emphasizing a little more. Last year it was, I don't want to say it was easy to ignore the turnovers, but I think
there's at
least 6. There's at least 6. It might have been 8. It might have been 8. It was a crooked number, but it was but it was one of those things where you're like, it's, does it really matter? It's the spring game. It was nice to see it pretty much, fairly cleaned up. I think Kalen lives and learns from his. He threw his a little late, his interception.
Rayola hit the guy in the face mask.
Rayola basically hit Bell. Yeah, it was Bell. That was a tough outing for Bell. And it went on literally straight through his hands in the interception. And I think we maybe had a fumble, but that was a vast improvement. So coaching wise, A+ there.
That's a great point.
And then I do think just the style of the game that they were going to call pretty much the whole time, and just letting these guys kind of air it out and basically put on a little bit of an electric show was props to them for that. The final thing, like just during the broadcast, was a complete aside, but so Rule, if you watch the full replay, Rule during the second quarter, he's up in the press box,
right?
And they're like, it was like a series of plays, and it was unbelievable to listen to him. It would be like, Ismail, like Smith Flores catch the ball, and he's like, oh, his sister was texting my friend. You're like, wait, he knows everything. Like he dropped a stat about Ian Flint's sister. I think it was Ian Flint's sister is in like the Kansas City like national relays or something in track, and it was just like he knows these families, he knows these recruits, he knows them to like such a personal level that I couldn't help but notice. I was like, he keeps talking about these guys' sisters. He's first of all, he's going to get in trouble.
Yeah,
second of all,
easy boy.
Second of all, it's just remarkable that he's quoting these families. He's stating what their sisters do for a living. It's just, I think that everything comes back to this culture he's trying to build of this whole quote unquote brotherhood thing.
The family.
It's pretty remarkable that he's able to actually just say live broadcast. I mean, completely unscripted. Someone catches a ball and he's dropping stats on their family members. Like,
I thought where I thought you were going with that was he was like, I thought he was like a tortured, imprisoned like coach up there, like because he was up there during the whole. He was up there during like the terrible sequence of like it was Barney gets tackled by Alvano, and he was like, you could tell he was just like, house that, and he was like shaking, but then that was followed. The next play is Demetrius Bell got hurt. And he just was destroyed that he was up there and he couldn't believe he was down there. And like 2 or 3 plays later, somebody missed a block. And he was like, like they were asking him a question. And he's just like, what was the question? What was the question? Just make the block. It's like, you got to figure those guys up there. Just like, he just seemed like a tortured animal. Like, I don't want to be up here. I want to be down there. What am I doing up here?
That was awesome to hear him. His exchanges with Kenny Bell.
Yeah, I always think that stuff's impressive. Like, because his exchanges with Kenny Bell, like that's where somebody would get really tripped up. Is like if you're not actually following like the Pelini years of Nebraska because he was down at Baylor, like you could see where you'd get tripped up there. What he said something about like DiCaprio Boodle, and he was like, "Hey, did you play with like Decap?" And I was like, "God damn, he's already got like he's got the nicknames of players that played 9 years ago like figured out like."
Right,
like that would be so hard. That's sick. That's there's 3,000 players that have played since like 1986. You got to remember all those guys.
Yeah, he did ask him about that. Oh, thank you, Logan, for commenting. Logan Collins said it was Harburg's sister. That's right, because he was talking about how athletic the family was, and he was just like talking about like his mom did this, his sister is currently doing this, like giving updates on Harburg's sister's track stats. It was like this guy knows every player on the team.
He's got them
incredible. And
meanwhile,
Dion, he hasn't even met half these players on his team.
Dion doesn't even know their names. It is God.
There doesn't know their names.
You've got to like, his kid is like, I don't even remember that kid.
You got to make the effort, and it's very clear that
I just think from a longevity standpoint, assuming a rule is going to stick around here for a bit, like the Dion thing is so clearly like a 2 to 3 year thing that's just going to like shut down. That it's like this guy is building something here. As long as we can like just turn this corner and like make it happen and make a bowl game and start to like make the positive momentum, it's like you got to feel pretty good about it.
100%.
Talk recruits. Who's
there? Yeah. I mean, it was great. It was, first of all, a good decision to be using the spring game as a recruiting official visit weekend. Last year, we did not do that. And a couple other years past, we just hadn't really been able to pull it off. But I think now that they kind of got their feet wet, they knew what they wanted to do, and they knew I think they had a plan for this. Probably the big one that is, I think we can expect at this point to end up committing is TJ Lateef. He's good. He's good.
Is he gone?
4-star QB, believe out of California. And he had kind of a lot of positives to say. I heard that he's maybe like visiting, he's visiting a couple other schools, but that were kind of the clear front runner, and that the Huskers have made him kind of a priority guy. So that's exciting because he's the next wave basically after that. John Mills, there was an interview with him as well. He's a big time 4-star O lineman. He seems to be trending up for us as well. And there's Dawson Merritt. He was here this last weekend. He's between Bama and Nebraska. So we're just going to dance with the big boys now. Let's go, buddy. But On3 has it like pretty split between us. There's a couple others that feel a little bit more like some longer shots there. Michael Terry, I think the receiver, 5-star dude, phenomenal athlete. But he had to like what he saw as well.
I think any of these wide receivers, it's like you all of a sudden got a shot because you're like, shit, I could be number one in number one with a number one QB throwing to me, like, or you could be the 11th best wide receiver down in Alabama and the 12th best wide receiver down in Georgia, or you could be the best wide receiver here with a top quarterback. It's like, hey, it's like you could be Trey Palmer here. I don't know. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good pitch.
Yeah, 100%. We also had Ali Kalaniuvalo. He's out of Bishop Gorman, which is where Ruggieri went. And then Emmanuel Choice, another receiver out of Texas. I think that a lot of these Texas guys have kind of seen where we want to go for our skill talent, where we want to go for our receivers as well. We're building up some connections down there. So Michael Terry's from there. Emmanuel Choice is from there. These are both 2 4/5-star receivers that are checking out the goods. So I think it was a pretty big.
It was good. The game is the real deal, and that's he gave me like 25 different highlights that I'm just going to watch over and over again until September to get me through the full off season. And that's all I wanted was just give me something. I literally said what we said before the game. It's like, give me one where you like just throw it as far as you can. And we got a 64-yard touchdown pass. But then he had another incompletion that he threw like 80 yards off his back foot, which was just like with a flick of his wrist. Incredible. But I also am oddly like watching way more of his just like his little dumps that he does, where he just like he's just able to throw these screen passes like just super quick off his foot, just like he's a shortstop, effortless ball.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Catch and release throws. Yeah,
catch and release, just smooth, cool, calm in the pocket. He acts like a 5th-year senior. He's 18 years old, and it's gonna be a fun off season.
He's got prom next week.
He got prom next week, and just think we're gonna have a very fun season. It's gonna be fun. So let's wrap this bad boy up. This was fun. But yeah, we just had a lot of thoughts on the spring game. Thanks everybody for joining. We got over 1,000 folks that have come and gone. Appreciate you guys for listening. And go Big Red.
JBR, baby.